Hello, everybody. Just wanted to, before this last week is up, be able to get to you some of the latest and greatest information on evaluation as we wrap up this year and move into next. We're going to try to make this presentation quick and painless. So let's just start off with what stuff do we need to clean up in order for us to wrap up this year and move on into next year. So there's a couple things as recent as yesterday, actually, for tenured staff members. If you've completed both your slow and your formal observation prior to the closure, you're in good shape. You probably have already met with, called, or had an email correspondence with your administrator going over your summative score, and then you are required in that case to then, instead of a physical signature, just shoot an email back to us saying, I had my summative, I know my score is this, and that counts as your signature. We staple that, put that in your permanent file. Again, signatures don't mean you agree with the score. It simply means you had your summative and that there was an opportunity to discuss, and your score was part of that. If you're in your second year of your evaluative cycle, we all know for tenured staff there's 2 years. So if you're in your second year and you did not complete your slow, your formal, or both of them, this just is hot off the presses. Per Senate Bill 1569, your prior summative scores, which would be those from 2018, are going to be your score for this evaluative cycle 2020. And you're going to start next year with a fresh start, first year of your next 2-year cycle, like you didn't miss a beat. So if you got a proficient back in 2018 for your summative score, you're going to get a proficient in 2020. If you got an excellent in 2018, you're going to get an excellent in 2020. Again, that is only if you were in your second year and supposed to have a formal observation and get your slow finished. So if any of those pieces did not come together because of COVID, then you kind of just carry over whatever your last evaluation was. Now, in contrast to that, if you're tenured and you were in your first year of your 2-year evaluative cycle and you didn't complete your slow, because that's all you would have had in your first year anyway, you are going to be required to next year, in addition to your all-in slow, which the district every building is going to be all-in, in addition to that all-in slow and going into your formal observation or alternative, which we're going to talk about in a second, you are going to have to make up the slow that you did not get completed this year. So in essence, besides just having the all-in slow next year and your formal observation, because it will then be your second year of your evaluative cycle, you will have another slow that you did not complete this year. And the only reason you'd be in this category is if you didn't complete it this year anyway. So that's that one. For non-tenured staff, same thing. If you've completed your slow and the formal observation, you're meeting, you're emailing back, that's the same as it was with the tenured staff. If you're in your second, third, or fourth year and did not complete your slow, your formal observation, or both, we've agreed that you're going to move your prior summative score from 2019 over, and that's going to be your evaluative score for this year. Why 2019? Because for second, third, and fourth year teachers, they get evaluated every single year. So instead of their last summative score being 2 years ago, 2018, it was last year if you're a second, third, or fourth year teacher. If you're in Roxana if you're in your first year in Roxana, but you taught elsewhere in 2019 and didn't complete your slow, formal observation, or both, we are going to use your 2019 score from your previous place of employment. And there's only a couple of you that fall into that category, and your admin will be talking to you. And then if you are in your first year as an educator, you've never taught before, and you didn't get anything finished, your formal observation, your slow, or both, I don't think we have anybody. We might have a couple in those situations regarding slows at the secondary. But if we didn't get that information, your default score is a proficient, because we don't have anything prior to go on. Next, what changes do we have in place for next year? Number one, we talked about it with Para. We gave high school a chance for some input. They were the only building that did not have all in. We took a vote, and it was unanimous that the entire district is all in. meaning these are the criteria. This is what it looks like, but it does take us to a 70-30 split instead of a 50-50 split. The slow will be worth 30%, which that equals 15% for year 1 of your cycle, 15% for year 2 of your cycle, and then 70% of it is the Danielson practice. So what does the new all-in slow look like? It's different than if you chose vocabulary. There's 5 words that are chosen at the building level that you want to help support your building learning. Growth simply means that from a pre to a post, a student grew by a word. So if they knew no words on the pre and they learned 1 word on the post, we're counting it. If they knew 4 words on the pre and now they knew 5 on the post, we're counting it. If they got a perfect score, they got 5 out of 5 words on the pre-test, you don't need to post-test them, we're going to count them. You can give the assessment as often as you like as a classroom teacher until you meet whatever criteria you need to meet, which would be growth for all of your kids. We are shooting for a March 1st deadline so we can wrap up slows and have enough time for summatives. If there are extenuating circumstances, then the building would need to work with their administrator to extend that. And then what we're looking for is that 86% of the students in the building meet their growth target, which is 1 word growth or a perfect score on the pre. And then all staff will receive an excellent. And in fact, that's how it played out for South, Central, and the junior high this year. Everybody got an excellent on their slows. The way that gets scored, I'm not going to go over this in detail. You can see, but you would go down, practice is the columns and growth are the rows. If you got a 3 in growth and a 2 in practice, then you would have a 2.3 as an example. The only thing I want to point out is on those yellow cells, if you're tenured, that 3.5, actually, that's not the real number if you do the math. It's a little bit lower than that, but we chose for tenured staff to give a 3.5 and round that up for staff if they fell into that 3 in practice and 4 in growth, which would result in a 4. The math did work out on the 4 in practice and 3 in growth because there's a heavier weight, and so you would automatically be rounded up on that. However, for non-tenured staff, right? Oops, I'm in present mode, can't do that. In non-tenured staff, you get face value. And if you get face value of a 3.5 or 3.7, that's a 3. It's not, we don't round up. So they get face value, which means it's proficient because the only way to get excellent is a 4. It would mean you're mid-proficient, high proficient, however you want to look at it, but it would be proficient if you're non-tenured and you didn't get. So the only way to get an excellent as a new teacher is to get a 4 in practice and a 4 in growth. Okay, so that's part number 1, is that we're all in next year for the slow, which should take a lot of pressure off of everybody. Number 2, we are, through PARA, we have worked on what we're calling an AEO, an alternative evaluation option for those who meet the criteria and wish to do something other than a formal evaluation for the practice part of their evaluation. And there's only really 2 criteria. Number 1, you have to be tenured. So sorry, non-tenured folks, you're going to have to do your observations. And then your last summative rating had to be a 4. So if you're proficient and tenured, you would not qualify for this. You still have to be observed. But if you're excellent on your last observation and you're tenured, you have the option of doing this particular alternate to your formal. You do not have to. So you could qualify by being tenured and having your last summative rating as a 4 and say, you know what, I still want to do the pre, the post, and the observation. I don't want to do an alternate evaluation, and that's fine. It's completely up to you. However, if you do so choose to do that, here is just a very short list of thoughts that PARA kind of came up with things that you might want to look into, just ideas that were floating across. You could do a book study, a book you want to read. You could do micro-teaching, flipped classrooms. You could focus on closure, annotation, problem-based learning, Socratic seminars. You actually could do, for your alternate evaluation, a traditional slow with a pre and a post, looking at some part of that. If you chose to, now that we're all in, you could choose to do all in for your slow and actually do the very technical slow for your observation. You can pick anything that you want that has academic merit or social emotional merit for that matter. If you want to focus something on behavior techniques, classroom management, if you're in a class at SIUE or online and you've got a project due, absolutely, we would recommend that you float whatever that project is to take the place of your observation, so that you're getting bang for your buck in the class, as well as getting it to count for your evaluation. Now, we don't want just lip service to say, yeah, I'm doing it anyway, I'm just going to do it. We want, the reason we're giving this option is so that folks are a little more driven because they have choice, and they can look at their impact on things that they actually care about, as opposed to a one-off shot observation. There still would be informals, and those would count, but we're really looking at this being a good option for some folks that are tired of the inspection and would rather choose to look into something that they are interested in. We would require that you would complete this form. Now, there's several pages to the form, but what's unique about this is just that you do it. Just complete the form and have some discussions with your administrator, and there's really no way to not get an excellent on this either. We want value in the process. We don't want you checking off things simply because we have to do it. We're trying to find a way that actually people want to learn and want to grow and get better, that takes some of the heat off of the box checking. So what are you selecting? If you know the effect size of what it is you're selecting, then sure, put it, or the Danielson correlation, put it down. What question are you going to explore? How are you going to collect data? And how long do you think it will take for you to collect whatever data that is? Now, again, you could be doing a book study, and it may just be, my timeline is that I want to read the book by such and such a date, and I'm going to take some notes, and that's going to be kind of be my data, because I want to look at how whatever the book is about. That's fine. Second page is reviewing the data. So after reading the book, if you chose a book study, or doing this project, or looking, taking notes in my class when I'm teaching, or surveying students, whatever you want it to be, I notice, I wonder, and my inferences are. And so here's what I would like to attempt to do now that I've gathered some data with this. And so you come up with a little action plan and some strategies, and how you're going to be successful. Okay. Now, the last piece of this is, how did it go? What were the results? If you calculated an effect size, which we're going to learn how to do next year, that's awesome. If not, no big deal. And what is your reflection on your success? We just want genuine effort here. Here's where the just do it comes in. Here's how you scored. Did you have a pre-conference meeting to review whatever it was you were looking into with this form with your administrator? If you did, you check that criteria. Did you fill in all the boxes that were applicable? If you did, you get to check that box. Did you have a meeting or conference to review how is it going, and look at some of the data and start talking about and identifying what were some of your goals, strategies, and success criteria? If you met and discussed it, you get to check all three of those boxes. And then afterwards, after you did whatever you said you were going to do, you have a post-conference, and you talk about whatever you have filled out on that last piece, evaluating growth and success, that it was completed and discussed. Notice what's different here is that we're not saying you have to meet whatever goals you set. We want you to take risks. And we feel like if you have some arbitrary marker that you're supposed to meet, then you're not going to truly explore something you want to look at to see if it's got an impact or not. You're going to do what you need to do to get the boxes checked, and we're trying to get away from that. So all you have to do is come up with your plan and do your plan and talk about it with your administrator. That's going to get you at least proficient. And the only way to get an excellent is simply, after you've done that, share what you found, share your plan, share what you went through in this alternative evaluation option with your PLC or with the entire staff. However you determine that. If the administrator knows that you shared it, then he's going to put that down. You get a 4, and you get your excellent. So it's not that you have to meet so many kids with so many, and everybody's got to meet their target, and you got to hit all your success criteria as a student in order for them to be marked meet. There's none of that. This is simply, what do you want to do? What do you want to look into? Do it with fidelity. And so long as you're doing it with intent and fidelity, and you're meeting and you're having conversations about what it is you're looking at, and you're filling out that form genuinely as a reflection, and as a planning document, and then you share it, you're going to get a 4 on this 70% of your evaluation. So we feel like there's a lot of choice there for those who meet the criteria, which we just talked about earlier, was you're being tenured and having your last summative rating as a 4. That's it with evaluation. So we're all in next year at 30%. You know what category hopefully you fall into if you didn't get something done this year, whether you were tenured or non-tenured, and how that scoring process is going to wrap up this year. And then you know a little bit about your alternative evaluation option. There'll be more to come with this when we start school up next year. We'll go into some more detail. There'll be plenty of time for asking questions, but we wanted to get this out to you ASAP so you had time to think about, I know I'm taking a class this summer and I'd like to extend whatever I'm learning. Or I know I'm taking a class in the fall. Maybe there'll be something in the fall that I can do in my classroom. Or I really was interested in this book, or whatever you choose. So we'll talk about that in much more detail, but that's it. If you have any questions, email your building administrator, email me, give me a call. We'll be here all summer. All right, thanks.